Interesting take, Kayla. I mean, but lactose intolerant people don't necessarily die. They do, however, get diarrhea.
Accurate.
So there's that. Ready to get things pop. Well, how long have we been going? Not very long.
It's been like 35 seconds.
2 minutes.
What?
That's what it says on OBS.
Oh, it just went live on my...
Well, by the time you're caught up with the ultra lag that I installed, wanted it to be as slow as possible.
Say cheese and run for the bathroom, you non-dairy cougar.
You'll need that. Well, if you're a lactose intolerant person, you're not going to need the bathroom cougar. They'll be able to hear that it is occupied.
Yeah. Gross.
Yeah, that's your built-in bathroom cougar right there, is just giving yourself diarrhea. So, if you're going to have to plan ahead, like, I know I'm going to have to take a dump in public, just give yourself diarrhea while you're out. Yeah, bam. No one wants to mess with someone going through that. Oh, God, I forgot my bathroom cougar. Oh, good news. I can eat at the mall or whatever. I'm excited about this breakdown. Get Brent.
I do really like how that murder camera little poster came out. I like the bathroom cougar too, but the murder camera I think is my favorite of the two.
Mine too. I'm desperately trying to work out an image of the wallet moth. It is not working. The closest I got was a giant moth next to his wallet.
Yeah. I have tried like days worth of tries on that app to get the wallet moth, and it's just I've done wallet coming out of moth, wallet inside a moth, wallet
inside a moth.
I mean, yes. And everything is not.
I'm surprised. I guess, murder camera. Well, I don't know what prompt I used to get the murder camera, but the bathroom cougar was a long and winding road in itself, because colloquially it kept pulling the term for cougar that was older lady looking to get effed.
Yeah.
So I got a ton of artificially generated naked ladies in bathrooms. It learns the more you ask. So if you haven't asked for a specific thing, like object, or they're interacting, it's impossible. Because I was also trying to get something where there's a movie theater full of flamingos in the seats, right? Can't even generate either of those things together.
If Teespring had FFOP merch featuring a wallet inside a moth, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
I'll keep trying. AI has to eventually hit on something. It served me pretty well so far.
I'm so excited for my FFOP Pride shirt to come.
Not to change the subject from that really quick, but there was an article out that there's this art community that are getting up in arms about artificially intelligence generated art. And so then there's all these memes about how you're looking at DeviantArt, you don't know whether to give it a like because it could be produced by a machine and you don't know how to deal with that ethically or something. It's a weird time to be alive, people.
I mean, I get why some artists could not like that, because then you can basically produce whatever you wanted with that.
Yeah, because it's hit or miss, but when it hits pretty good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I get people, because art is basically the only thing that humans have, unique to us. Every other animal can do other things like we do to survive, but not very many of them take the time to sit down and create something out of whole cloth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, whatever though. It'll because think about this too, like 3D printing, like sculpting, that no one's complaining about that. But then I'm not to talk about this any further than I need to, but I've been seeing a lot of commercials for Meta and all these people like either riding bikes together all across the world because they're wearing super Meta goggles or some stupid thing.
Oh, Meta's a
Meta
thing?
is the company that owns Facebook, or that's
Right.
what the company that changes is Facebook. So Zuckerberg is pushing all of his chips into the VR or augmented reality basket.
Oh. Kayla says it's only a matter of time before South Park addresses it AI and
Took our gerbs.
took our gerbs.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I get it, but like, here's the thing. It's a godsend to me because I'm one of these people who is not creatively, or not, maybe not creatively, but not artistically, like mechanically inclined. If I have to draw something, it won't work. Like I can work with my hands in other like physical media, but I can't draw. And I would run through $1 billion getting people to create this stuff for me had it not been for this program.
Yeah.
Because like the logo for this show, you know, whatever, $150, whatever it was. Cool, got that once. But this AI will spit out 1 million things. And, you know, most of them suck. But since it's free, like you're basically pulling a slot machine to see what you get. And sometimes, you know, you roll all cherries and sometimes it's crazy. But even the crazy ones are even worth it sometimes because they're so bizarre and funny.
I just don't understand. Like, whenever I do something like an animal, especially, they always have 2 heads.
Yeah, flamingos are, for whatever reason, AI loves to think, or it loves to depict them as like replicating by budding. So it'll be like, instead of one body per flamingo, it'll be like sprouting off and it'll look like vines, almost pink vines.
Giraffes are like totally fucked. Like, don't even bother putting a giraffe in because it's.
Well, you got to keep using it so it'll learn. I feel like we should start the show.
All right.
You're listening to FFOP Radio.
Reach the
Hey everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Dave, and this is an FFOP live thing, true crime based. And I bet you're as excited as I am, or at least I hope you are. So, you know, what are we doing here? You know it. You read the title. So, and Chris is here. Obviously, you heard her in the green room.
Yeah, I'm usually always here.
So I'm going to give you guys a little background because we're obviously doing the Brendt Christensen interrogation. And if you're new to true crime or whatever, and also the interview or interrogation is going to leave out a lot of these salient details. So I did the work for you. So Brendt here is at this stage in life being accused of killing Ying Zhang. So she was a Chinese foreign exchange student that came to the U of I. So the place that we're at is Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. Mm-hmm. It took place June 9th, 2017. Okay, so also a little bit of context here. Brent's wife was on a trip with another man because they are in an open relationship. And they kind of get that into their thing, but it's a little confusing. So yeah, they have an open relationship. So they both have a other partner,
Side
maybe
piece.
more. I don't know. At least one other outside of, which will come into play later because after all this plays out, his girlfriend, not his wife, approached the FBI and was like, hey, give me a wire and we're going to walk around this festival, or not at least, but it was like a get together memorializing his victim. And like he gets drunk and spills the beans to her. Mm. And so she keeps going, like, because she didn't think he was a murderer. Spoiler alert, he murdered her. She didn't think he was a murderer. And so as he's spilling his guts, she's like, maybe we shouldn't talk about this anymore. And he's like, no, it feels good. And he just, whatever. He sexually assaulted her, strangled her. They never found her body. So who knows? It's all, we're going off of whatever word or evidence we've got. But according to him, he took her to the dump in 3 trash bags. And then she was spread out through such a large area that, to this day, never found her.
Wow.
So she's got like a memorial in Illinois, and
she was by herself there, right? Like her family wasn't there because she was an exchange student, right?
Yeah, the day that this interview takes place, he'll bring it up, but like, the family's like flying in from China and all this stuff. Like, it is crazy. So there's the footage here. So there's Brendt, and also this is taking place, like at the FBI building. So the meaty guy here, he is the detective from the college.
Oh yeah.
And so the next guy who comes in is the FBI agent, who is my favorite. I love this duo. It's one of my favorite interrogation duos, and you'll see why. So let's get this thing underway. Why is there no sound? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, and I assume you guys came at midnight. That this is a priority, so I assume that everything's.
Oh yeah. Also, it's fucking midnight.
Yeah.
Like they pulled his ass in. So they're at the FBI building. It's midnight, and like just keep that in mind because you go, well, maybe he's not acting so shifty, but keep in mind it's also fucking midnight.
Fast.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but
I love this guy.
we just got a lot of questions to ask.
Yeah.
We want to get this resolved so everybody can move on with their lives.
The silence before and after interviews, I used to hate, but now I think is like delicious because,
It just makes it awkward for them.
well, yeah, because like you're watching it, you can kind of conjure that in yourself because you've been in a situation where you're like in trouble, like by a parent or whatever, not necessarily breaking the law, but there's in that high stress situation where you've been there before, but this is interesting because they're both adults and it's not like, one, I don't know. It's just a weird dynamic that I've come to really enjoy.
Let us know if the sound is too loud or soft,
Brent, our
or if you
system's
can't hear
running
us.
a little bit slow. I know there's a storm's coming in. We're getting power outages.
Bring
Okay,
in the small talk.
Right. Okay. So that's the thing. This is one of my favorite, just to preload you, this is one of my favorite deliverances of and excuses for giving someone their Miranda rights.
Wow, this changed a little.
There's a little bit of chair shenanigans too, I forgot about.
Like I said, you're home. My name is Anthony Manganaro. I'm a special agent with the FBI. I'm assigned here in Champaign. And then this is Eric.
Yeah, Detective Eric Stuyvesant.
Detective with University Police. Okay. We are investigating the disappearance of Ms. Ying Ying. Because we are in my offices and it's late at night, I'm going to read you your advice of rights. Okay. Again, this is a voluntary interview, so
The
anytime
chairs.
you're
What?
done,
Yeah.
we'll drive you back home. That's the end of it. But just kind of given that it's late and stuff like that,
Yeah.
abundance of caution. All right, so
Do you see how smooth he is? Since
Yeah.
it's late at night.
Look at his suit.
Yeah. So yeah, he's pulling up a lot of things that are going to be, yeah. So it's also like sort of laid back dad and uptight son, this duo. But the fact that it is late at night, so that's a nice mitigating thing where you can go, oh God, we're at my building, it's late. So, and also doubling down by being like, hey, guess what? You can leave at any time. So after I read these, anytime you can get them to go. But by then the lock is around the dog collar.
Well, and he says like, basically we'll get this over with, then you can get up and go home. Like
Yeah,
that is not going to happen.
That's the thing, because since they don't have anything or enough of anything to arrest him at this point, yeah, that's totally true.
So he can literally just go home, or
Yeah,
he
this is
doesn't.
a
He doesn't go
voluntary-
home afterwards, though. Right?
No, yeah, he does.
He does.
Yeah, because he gets out after this. Spoiler alert? He leaves, and that's how the girlfriend records him. 'Cause
Oh,
the FBI
right.
put a wire
Yep,
on him.
sorry.
Doy.
Oh, I think.
before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you in court. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we ask you any questions. So I'm trying to read upside down.
I don't have this
You have
memorized.
the right to have a lawyer with you during questioning.
I've got this
If you
memorized.
cannot afford a lawyer, one will be appointed for you before any questioning if you wish. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you have the right to stop answering questions at any time. If you understand these rights, if you have any questions about these rights, ask now, ask anytime. If you do wish to talk, you can sign, I'll sign as a witness, and I'll go from there.
You see how smooth that is?
Yeah, he's a good.
This guy
Dude.
could sell, a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I don't remember that reference, but yeah, like this guy is so smooth, and that's how you can tell a really good interrogator, is if, they can come in because like the rights will buck a lot of people, but this guy just sailed right in and with almost no effort, he goes, "Oh yeah, I'll sign." Meanwhile, Grumpy Cop is just sitting here all
I'm not
disinterested.
asking questions, it's some questions.
Well, it's 12:15 in the morning.
Yeah, if
Well, I
if
think
I ask you a
what I'm
question,
saying is like he's sitting sort of backed off, so there's no pressure yet because you want to be as hands off as possible when you're giving them their rights, because they'll say lawyer, boom, and or they'll say I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So he's not even engaging with him at all. Like his eyes are at his phone. He's not getting any pressure. He's not even a blip on his radar.
and you're like, hey, I don't want to answer that, but I'll answer other ones.
Yeah.
Again,
The soft admission. I'll answer some, but not others.
it is like 7 minutes after.
It says 12:14.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe his watch is off. The detective from the college reminds me of like every few years you have a friend who would have a stern dad like this. Let me know if you agree after we get some of them under our belts here. But he reminds me of like that nice but gruff father of a friend.
I'm gonna, where's my notepad? Here's actually, thank you. Okay.
I forgot to ask you, did you bring your phone with you?
I didn't.
Also, some of the things that campus detective will say will be like dad questions, and we'll get to them.
Now, I'm gonna apologize ahead of time, because I know that you've already spoken with my colleague, Joel. This chair is,
It's like broken.
More chair shenanigans. Here they come.
it's,
What the heck?
it's,
Purposefully,
No,
or it just happens to be crappy chairs?
it just happens to be that chair is not good. Like this is not. Yeah, because sometimes they'll do that.
Yeah.
They will make everybody play musical chairs, but the reason it's a legitimate circumstance here is like you do that with the perp. You don't do it with
Right.
the detectives. You'd say, because right now, and again, they're keeping it nice and light because when you want to really confront someone, you'd put yourself between them and the door. But they're on the far side. He's on the side with the door, and it's as low pressure as possible, which is probably what made him crack so easy because he's such a passive sort of guy.
We're gonna play musical chairs.
Leo, that's a lot better. It's like I feel like it was leaning back away from you. All right. So I know that you spoke with my colleague Joel. I've briefly been able to talk to him. We've been kind of running all over the state. So if you can kind of give me a recap of what you told him, I would appreciate it. Our investigation, as I'm sure Joel probably told you, is the disappearance of this woman, this young lady, and the most viable tip that we had referred to a black Saturn Astra. So that's why he came to talk to you
Yeah.
the other day. Do you remember what you told him? And I'm not going to hold you to it if there are certain details you
Yeah.
forget.
Okay, so the reason why you're going to see this a lot in true crime is they go over the timeline again and again and again and again, because if you're fabricating it, it'll be hard to remember. But if you lived it, you're going to recall it no matter how many times you are asked about it. And so I like that sort of shit can get repetitive. And if you watch like polygraph tests, dear fucking God, are those repetitive. But it's all like rapport building and body language and stuff. But it's also like nitpicking because the police will literally come over your every word to be like, aha, Yeah, that's basically their job.
Okay. So they came, they were just checking out all of the Saturn Astros in the area.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a pretty rare car, so probably a short list.
Yeah.
He asked where my wife and I were.
His arm poking out the side there looks like a joke arm from a Halloween Spirit Superstore that he like doesn't want to let go of, like he just bought it.
Yeah.
During,
It's like, no, you can't have it.
His
2
white
or 3
sneakers
on
just
Friday.
are sticking out to me this whole
And,
time.
I mean, I graduated a couple weeks ago, so I'm looking for jobs right now. So,
Okay.
I mean, I was either playing video games on my computer or taking an afternoon nap. So,
Real active dude, this guy.
I,
Brett's knocking it out of the park.
I looked into certain things to try and see if I could get some kind of info for an alibi. I sent some texts around that time, but none exactly between 2 and 3. I let them come in the apartments. They searched for stuff. I let them come in the car. They searched for stuff there.
Him and his white sneakers.
So you see how he's like sort of, he's trying to be as accommodating as possible. Be like, hey, remember, you've already searched all my shit. But he's so vague about this guy. Really is insane because his denials are so weak, and even when his story, because obviously throughout the interrogation, everybody as they wear down their story changes. His is like almost as fast as like Dalton Aiken of the Corey Fitzwater where they shot that guy. It like. But he hangs on to this weird story for a long time.
How long between this and the time that she was killed?
She
Was it just a couple days, or was it like?
yeah. This is literally 6 days after
Okay.
she was it happened.
Give my info.
So I think she was reported missing later
What'd
that day or
you,
the next day.
graduate in?
Masters in physics.
In physics?
Check this out.
Wow, that's way smarter than me.
Thanks.
Thanks.
So another thing is, depending on the sources, this guy Brent here fancied himself a budding serial killer and had a bunch of like dark thoughts and all this other stuff. So the fact that, and there's a bunch of like a paper trail of all this shit too, but whatever. The fact that he like, if you consider yourself a burgeoning serial killer, it would infer to me like that you would have a plan or something. But that's the thing about people who commit crimes. The dumb ones are the ones that are caught because they fantasize about committing the crime, but not literally any of the aftermath or like how to. There's no planning ahead. Like his plan was basically bare bones, which, I mean, no plan is going to be great, but I mean, have something aside from just like I'm gonna get in my car.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's over at the U
Hypothetically.
there? Yes. Okay. You said your wife was out of town.
Yes.
The guys mentioned something about Wisconsin.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You guys are originally from there, or is
Yes.
that okay? Do you know what days she was in Wisconsin?
Like late Thursday night, early Friday morning until Sunday evening.
It's a quick trip.
She out looking for a job, or
No, she has a job here. She's still on
Okay.
the road trip.
oh, the job center.
Wait, what?
I'm sorry, I may have misheard.
Oh, no, she has a job already. She was on a vacation.
Oh,
On a
okay,
road trip.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't. Brent is so dicey about this, and it eventually comes out. So I don't know why he fought it for so long, but he basically doesn't readily admit the fact that it's an open marriage, and she went with her boyfriend. Because as you can see now, he's like being really obfuscative, and like there's no. He's like, work? What's happening? And no, he's, oh, you know, they just went. We're from there. There's no real information being gained from Brent.
Well, I feel like back in 2017 and stuff, like that whole polyamorous stuff was still a little.
Now it's been a thing since people have been alive. So
No,
don't-
I'm just saying to be openly talk about it.
no,
strangers.
What? This is like 5 years ago, and you're in a fucking police station.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like if you're innocent, you tell all the weird stuff. But that's the
true.
thing. If you're in a polyamorous relationship too, then wave that flag. Don't be like coy about it, especially in a murder investigation, because that's going to make you look fucking shady.
Yeah.
And if they have to, like 25 minutes down the road, be like, why didn't you just say that earlier? Then you look like what you're going to look like, a murderer.
I'm seeing some old friends up in Wisconsin and stuff.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Cool.
Cool.
You mentioned that you thought you possibly sent text messages between, the hours.
Oh, yeah. You see how he just glanced over the fact he doesn't have an alibi either? He's like, well, I looked around. I don't have an alibi. But anyway, also, there's this other stuff.
2 or 3, so you weren't able to find any.
That's correct.
Do you
Correct.
recall any text messages they sent that day, or like were there
Oh
specific
yeah, there were one.
times?
I actually left. Well, I didn't. They didn't look through the phone, but I was showing them texts on my phone. Like
Okay.
someone sent me a text at like 1:30. I responded at like 3:45 or something
Okay.
like that.
Shortly after the
So,
murder. Dope.
Shit.
There are texts around it.
Yeah, but maybe not.
Not
in
exactly
that
between
specific-
two.
But there's like a big murder-sized hole in my schedule of
About an
texts.
hour or so.
Like just enough to like abduct someone and like torture them for a while.
Three.
Sorry,
That's why I
cops.
think I was probably lying down and sleeping, just because, like, especially now, I'll typically do stuff in the morning, look for jobs, apply to a few, and like,
Take a nap.
I lie down to sleep.
That's
wake
the
up,
thing. Is like he comes
respond.
off as such a
Definitely fits.
sponge.
Okay. Was that kind of pattern of kind of looking for jobs, kind of having a little relaxation after graduation, was that typical of the entire week prior?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Do you remember specifically if you sent any applications out online or if you visited any places
on Friday.
throughout the week?
Throughout the week, I haven't.
See, this is all rapport building, obviously, because like they don't. What did he do a week before the murder? Who knows? Who cares? But now that we're stopped, I also want to point out too that university detective hasn't said shit yet, and that's because they're going to pull a classic good cop, bad cop, and these guys, maybe they have worked together before, but it seems like they haven't, because how often would the FBI come in and work a murder on
A college
a
campus?
college campus? It seems like it doesn't happen very often. But these guys work together so beautifully. I would swear that this routine has been planned like over years. Like when you're watching Mindhunters and how those two investigators work so well off each other. That's what this reminds me of. And to my knowledge, unless like the FBI is always running down to the U of I, this is probably one of their only interactions together.
Done any in-person interviews. I had a phone interview on Thursday, and
And how'd that
Anything
go?
on Friday?
And like he's got a master's in physics, so
Remember
what is he
if you,
applying
sent
for?
an email or anything on Friday?
I
Like
did,
with the
I
resume
checked.
or-
I checked.
Oh, you checked.
Maybe just a
Okay.
regular job before until he can get a.
Was that on
physics
the email
job.
account that you?
A physics job.
Yeah, just my.
Joel
first-
said he
Professor.
had an email for you. But,
Yeah.
Let's see what it was.
It's just my first and last name at gmail.com.
Okay.
So I didn't really send any emails today.
So you'll notice, if you're like me, you'll notice this, but Brent is constantly fucking with his face. He's scratching it and he's picking his nose and stuff. I don't know if it's like stress relieving, self-pacifying gestures, or if he's just so unaware of himself and is like just a gross human that he's willing to like spend a lot of time grooming himself and picking his nose in front of other people.
It could be a nervous tick.
He comes across, well, since his daily life, as described to these detectives by him, is like video games and napping and occasionally applying for a job in the morning. This guy seems like, and yet, married and a girlfriend. So, don't give up, everybody. Brent here can do it.
Do you have any questions for me before?
This is a good one.
Why am I under suspicion?
Ah.
Just my car, or is there anything else?
I mean, that's a large portion.
Do you have any
It's,
evidence,
a
officers?
very neat car. Like I said, our search warrant is just for the car.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing about this case is he drives that black Saturn Astra with two distinguishing features. It has a sunroof and a cracked hubcap, which they later tie to them. But also, in the state of Illinois, there are 1,400 Astras.
Wow.
So, not a very popular car. You're obviously like, I can't, whatever. He knows it too. He'll say it later. He goes, yeah, I don't see that car literally anywhere else.
Well, that's what he said at the beginning. He was
Yeah.
like, apparently it's not a very popular car.
Yeah. So, and that's the one you take to go out and like patrol the streets for a murder victim.
So we
Brent,
can be,
master's in physics. Thanks.
Not common
into
sense,
it.
though.
We can, of course, see what we can find, and of course, you could also turn around and exonerate you completely. I mean, talking about a very rare car.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, really.
So rare.
but, how long were you at the U of I? Did you do undergrad there as well?
No, I did my undergrad at UW-Madison,
Okay.
and I came here in 2013.
Okay.
I was initially in the PhD program, but decided I didn't want a PhD, so I just kind of left with the master's.
Got it. You like the campus?
It's all right.
Not too bad.
It's all right.
Hang out in the quad a lot, Brent.
Your wife there? Or?
No, we actually grew up in the same hometown. Didn't really know each other until end of high school. So we both moved to Madison when I went to undergrad, and then moved here.
Cool. Did she study here as well?
No, she did not.
Do you have any questions, Eric?
It's coming up, and I don't want to spoil it, but these guys will do a look later that is like, it should be in a movie.
Yeah, when we were talking about Friday, the day in question on the night, can you remember, you said you played video games all day on Friday?
Yeah,
Is it just between the time period that he's asking about, or just literally all day?
literally all day. At the moment, not really hanging out with too many people or talking to too many people. My wife and
I don't have a lot of friends, so that's another brick in the wall of Brent there. But another thing to think about that he didn't, obviously, is like video games are computers, and they
Watch
but they
them,
do.
or-
No, they don't watch them, but they keep a log of when they're activated.
Right.
It's like when you turn on and off your phone or any computer, a video game system is a computer. So like if you're like, oh, I was playing video games all day. That's the thing I don't understand about some of these people. Is like, you interact with so many electronic devices. If you disappear from all of them for just an hour, like, does nobody think about that? Like, am I the only one who realizes that cell phones track you all over the place because they're pinging off towers and stuff?
Right.
But that's the thing. All these people, like, and it comes up in a lot of interrogations where they go, we can check your phone and yada yada yada. And like, I want to be inside some of these people's heads when the detectives say, "Hey, did you know your phone tracks you literally everywhere?" And they have to go, "Yes, of course." And then their head go like, "Oh fuck."
Yeah. Right. God damn.
It's like when you're putting bread into the oven, right? And you realize you forgot the baking soda and it's too late. You're slipping it in. You go, "Oh fuck."
This is ruined.
And come on, obviously, come on.
Joe says we didn't really know each other till a few years before the murder.
Yeah,
girl I talked
surprisingly.
to, she was busy. My wife was out of town, so it's like, well, I'm alone today. So,
Girlfriend's busy,
yeah,
wife out of town.
it's just
You
kinda-
didn't do a cruising campus or anything?
Here it
I did on
goes.
Saturday, but I mean,
Yeah, this is going to be his thing. I got the days mixed up. Because that's what he said. I did Saturday. Oh, well, let's see how it plays out, Brent.
getting a little stir crazy, just decided to go out for a drive on Saturday. But
Did you go out to eat or anything?
Not
Go
Friday.
places?
Not
no,
Friday.
I didn't go out to eat.
I did not use my card anywhere. I was not caught on any
We had
cameras.
a 2000 Camaro as well.
That's right. Is that one primarily yours or your wife's?
It's primarily mine.
Really?
And see, that's another thing about this case, too, that blows my mind. Is like, I'm sure he thought that the Camaro would be too flashy, right? Because it would be like a 2000 whatever. I'm sure he had it in a candy apple red or whatever obnoxious color,
Right.
because Brent seems like that kind of dude. So he's like, oh, I'll take the Astra because it looks so normal, and I won't use the Camaro because that'll be all flashy. But I mean, either way, he would have been fucked, because if you're driving out a red sports car, everybody turns their head at the color red. But then if you choose the one where like 1 out of every 40,000 people in Illinois own, I mean, it's a rock and a hard place. And Like, what the? Obviously. But, that's the thing. If you're able to logic away murder, you wouldn't murder someone. So there you go. It's a loophole.
So,
Is that the car that she took on the road trip, or how did she go on a road trip?
the other person's car.
Other person's.
Another person. So, I'll typically drive the Camaro. The vast majority of the time when I'm doing errands, I'll take the Saturn because it's
Probably
the
better
Camaro
trunk
sucks for
space.
air.
Yeah,
Better on
exactly.
gas.
So, and everything.
yeah, but the Camara's the first line.
They're really slow playing the fact that they're like, it's this guy. Boom! Did you see that look? He goes, all right. Like, FBI guy has had enough rapport building. Like, he's ready for bad cop to come in with the club. And that look is the signal. It's like when you see a chameleon lock eyes on a cricket.
Coming for you,
Fucking
bitch.
awesome.
Look, you know that we didn't bring you all the way up here to talk about video games. And what
Oh,
you
you
had
did?
for lunch that day.
Yep.
Why do you think that we brought you up here?
Because of my car.
Because the car I own was seen picking up a girl that's missing.
Bingo. And this is what in the Reed technique is called the positive confrontation. It's basically like, hey, this is bullshit. Why are we really here? And there's no, it's still an indirect way of asking, like, what the fuck? But it's a firm line in the sand where you could say, okay, we're not fucking around here. What's going on? It's not like a negative, like, we know you did it, so fess up or whatever, or like, you're a bad person or whatever. But like, what are we doing here? Seriously? It's midnight 30 and you want to talk about video games, Brent?
Kayla says they don't believe he plays video games that much. Test him. Ask him what the Konami code is.
Yeah, pull out a gradient of skin shades and see how pale he is. From here, he looks like I'd buy it. It plays video games.
What's his KD ratio in Warzone? His
Oh yeah,
Joe?
Jesus Christ.
So who was driving that
He plays a lot of Raid Shadow Legend.
car other than you on Friday night? On Friday the 9th. You're driving your car on the 9th, weren't you?
Does anybody else have access to that car?
No one has access to this car. Okay.
So how many?
Okay, so here's the thing. Even though it's a bad lie, I would always, and I wouldn't, I shouldn't say I would always, because it's not like I'm always getting interrogated. But if you're going to do this stupid route and speak to the cops without a lawyer, if you're getting accused of a crime, like, they'll always say that. Does anyone have access to blank? Because, and you go, oh no, it's mine. It's my whatever. Because that, it triggers that instinct of like, no, I own this and I take pride in whatever it is. You say, well, does anybody have access to it? Does anybody use it besides you? Phone, your car, whatever. These are things that people hold dear. Because if you say, oh yeah, I let everybody all and sundry borrow it, then it's not going to help you, obviously, but then they'll have to go and weed out everyone you accuse. But they always say, does anybody use your phone? No. No one has access to it. No one has access to the car. No one has access to this. So they go, okay. So if we have evidence to put that car in this place,
With you
nobody
in it.
else can be implicated, right? And then they go, oh, don't! Like it's another moment. Along with the technology thing.
And where were they on the Friday?
One, I would have had one, my wife would have had one.
And hers were in Wisconsin, right? And what do you keep on that keychain? You keep both sets of keys, right? One for the Camaro, or do you have separate sets?
I have one keychain, but sometimes I take the Camaro keys off of it.
Important detail.
Who the hell cares?
Now, let's talk specifically about Friday. Okay.
This is great.
You went to school for how long at the U of I?
Since 2013.
Since 2013.
Yeah, so you're very familiar with our
And he
campus.
just graduated.
Yeah.
Not really.
So he's been there for 4 years. Keep that in mind.
Talked to anyone. So,
Because he just asked how familiar he is with the campus. And being there for 4 years, even if your eyes were closed completely for 2 of them, you would still have a layout of like,
Everything.
because you go to college there, you got to know where your classes are and shit. And so when he asks him like, hey, how familiar are you with the campus? He goes, not very. I never really talk to anybody. What does that's what boils my blood about these dudes who answer these dumbass questions with straight up lies, or not. This isn't a straight up lie, but it's a diversion. It's an answer to a question no one asked. Hey, are you familiar with the campus? I never really talk to anybody. Nice one, Brett.
Kind of a loner?
Not a
And you want
murderer
to lose
loner,
lab,
but like a
so-
regular one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my name. Was
Okay.
that and the attached feelings.
But specifically on that day, okay, when you originally told the agents that came to your apartment that you just played video games all day long, and you didn't leave the apartment.
Yep.
But it's fair to say that we know that that's not true.
I think that's a hilarious way to say that. I think it's fair to say that we know that's not true. He's
Yeah.
not saying that they have evidence of it. He's just saying, like, implying, like, yeah,
Come on.
man. You know what's going on here. And, I feel like it can be taken one of two ways, because he can say, we know the cops, or you and I, like, hey, come on, buddy. But I think that second one is not really bouncing off of Brent's, like, interaction zone of his brain, which is withered like a raisin.
Correct.
He has a master's in physics.
It doesn't mean he's good with talking to people. I mean, look at him. I mean, obviously, it's hard to gauge somebody's normal personality while it's midnight and they're in front of two police. But all the other stuff that I've seen of him, like even that weird confession, he's not he's not he's not someone you'd like see at a party and be like, yeah, I want to hang out with that guy. Like, he'd be the guy in the corner holding a drink, talking to nobody.
I mean,
Maybe there's some misunderstanding why we're here. Because like I said, we're not just looking for a needle in a haystack. I'm sorry, let me take that back. We are looking for a needle in a haystack. But my point is, you're making it sound like we just randomly came across your vehicle of the 1,400 Astros that are in the state of Illinois.
I have
So what would have happened that day that brings?
Real quick, this is the more popular version of this is like when they're making this confrontation and they'll say, we're not here for no reason. A lot of them, and I get it because it's, something that everybody can identify with, but they'll say, we didn't pull your name out of a hat, which always sort of gives me that, like, it's a birthday party vibe, and like, who's going to get the piñata first? It's like, we didn't pull your name out of a hat, goddammit. I've seen so many cops tell so many potential criminals, like, we didn't pull your name out of a hat. It's ridiculous.
Does to you?
probably that I live in Champaign.
And?
I've never seen one before, an Astro.
Never seen one before.
Just digging
Yeah,
yourself
well-
another hole. It's more like who's going to be the piñata first.
Believe me when I say that the full weight and force of the FBI is going to descend on that vehicle. And all that.
Look at that. That was a threat that came across like a silk scarf. He says, just so you know, the full weight and force of the FBI is coming down that vehicle. And he said it like, hey, good news. They're having tacos in the lunchroom today.
Right.
And so Brent's like,
Okay.
okay. But like, what a pants shitting thing to hear. Like, it's one thing to like be in front of a cop, right? Because it's like, cops are serious shit. But to have an FBI agent, a federal agent, to be like, yeah, the full weight of the FBI is going to descend on that vehicle. You go, holy fuck. Because like, if it were up to like the detectives at the U of I, it'd be like two, pot-bellied dudes like this pawing through your shit. But the FBI? Yee.
Else. Okay. Right now, my primary concern and why I've been out till midnight, and these guys have been out till midnight every single night, is we're trying to find this girl. It's raining outside, it's nasty, she's a
If you listen closely, because I'm picking up on it now, the more stressed he gets, the heavier he breathes. So keep an eye out for that, because at some point it'll become so obvious. You go, oh my God, is he dying? But this is right where it starts. You can feel his stress level, and it gets cartoonish at some points.
Foreign student has only been here for a few weeks. I want to find her.
That's all I can hear.
I know. I mean,
I feel like every interrogation should have that one wobbly fan blade somewhere.
Yeah.
I need to know why.
Look at shoulder shrugs all around. I got one for each of you.
Heavy breathing. Luke, I am your father.
Seriously.
If we can help her, we need it done now, because we need to move on from this.
It's been like 6 days now.
I don't know what to say. Sorry.
So the implication there is subtle, but masterful. He's like, if we can help her, we need to know now. So, I mean, they know, obviously, like that things have gone terribly wrong, because if you disappear for an hour, things go wrong. And she's been off the grid for 6 days. So, like, and he doesn't clue in on any of it, or at least he doesn't show any physical signs. Most people, you can see him jolt, but I feel like he's so dim in this respect, like dealing with other people. It hits him so slowly that's why his breath ramps up. It becomes more raspy slowly.
Yeah.
He's not like a Stephanie Lazarus who goes, whoa, oh God, I don't know. He's just like like he's a building volcano of asthma.
And you've been at the U of I for how long?
3 years.
And that you know what we do. I work in the Detectives Bureau at the U of I, and you know what we have access to.
Everything.
Cameras. Do you think that we're not going to track a vehicle all over campus? We control kiosks to bus stops. We can look in buses. We can look in every building out on the streets. And you're telling me that I didn't see you driving your car on Goodwin?
I don't know if this is true or not, but police will often do that. They'll bluff. And this, if it is a bluff, it is utterly believable. Because, with everybody now becoming more and more familiar with CCTV literally on every business and house, you can totally buy it to be, especially around a college.
Oh, yes.
Like, there's so much shit that can go wrong, from vandalism to like drunken disorderlies and shit. Like, that place is under surveillance 24/7. So even if and most oftentimes the cameras are broken, or they're pushed another way, or they're, the disc was full and they didn't record anything that day, or whatever, which happens all the goddamn time. The coverage of a college, and if he's saying, because, yeah, I've seen footage used in cases from buses. So I totally buy that, even if they don't have shit, which they probably don't. It's been 6 days since she disappeared, and that would be thousands of hours of footage.
Right.
But that is something that you can totally buy, and it's brilliant. Like, if you're going to have a lie, hide a grain of truth into it, and that has a whole spoonful.
That I didn't see you driving down Wright Street and turning on right in front of parking where everybody pays their tickets, and driving down University to Goodwin and heading south. And then you see her standing on that corner in that shade tree, didn't you? That's where you first saw her.
I'm willing to believe they don't have the footage screened yet, because when they do show the footage, and whatever the true crime video I'm watching is, you can clearly see it's him in the car. The hubcap is broken, and there is the sunroof. So I think if they had proof like that ironclad, they would have knocked his ass into a cell after this.
And why would he be like, you saw her under that shade tree? Like,
Well, because they know where she was. They were able to ping her phone up until a certain point.
oh, at that precise.
Yeah, because they were it was a missing persons first, so they were looking for her. And obviously they didn't know about Brendt until later, but if they're tracking her, they would ping her phone, they would find her schedule, and that's what they did, because what was happening was she was going to meet with a realtor to find some housing.
Right.
So she was setting up an appointment, and she missed her bus, and that's what spurred this whole thing on. Is like he was rolling around, pulled up, and she's like, "Can you get me there?" And he goes, "Yep." And then the rest is history.
Mm.
And then you turned on Clark, and we still have cameras.
I've seen the videos. I didn't see me.
You've seen
Like-
what we've allowed you to see.
Like the police would be like, "Here, 7 o'clock news. Here's the murderer."
Do you think that we brought you up here to show you video?
That's the second dad question. The rhetorical where he says, do you think we brought you up here to talk about video games? Do you think we brought you up here to talk about video or to show you video? It's like a classic friend's dad question when like your friend would ask their dad for something. It's like, do you think I get paid enough to blah, blah, blah? It's always one of those.
We want to understand why you did it.
Yeah.
We want to understand why you stopped her to pick her up. Was it to give her a ride? Are you afraid to tell us that you gave her a ride? Maybe you wanted to make a couple bucks as an Uber driver.
Bing.
And she told you I had to go sign a lease at One North, and you're like, oh, I know where that's at. I'll drop you off. If you're
See, and if you were, I mean, by and large, every human is going to act differently. But if you are sitting in a room like this and someone sails right over every if and or but, and they go, "We know you did it, but we want to know why," like you'd probably jump up and be like, "What the fuck?" Brent just sits there. He's like, "We know you did it. We just want to know why." Is the question that
Right.
always goes like, if I stay quiet, maybe I'll look innocent.
Yeah, but this, like that kind of statement like that would, if he didn't lawyer up at the start, that would be the time to lawyer up.
Well, no, like he's trying to, like every of them think they can because he thinks he's pretty smart, is like explain away whatever.
Mm.
And whatever plan he had, he abandoned immediately because as you'll see, it's like, what? Like not even a little. No resistance after this first, like, we know you did it. We just want to know why. He basically confesses through a proxy like Bundy did. Like he would say, like they would go to him for, how do you think this killer is working? And he's like, well, he would probably do this. He's probably doing that. So he's, saying, instead of saying he's like, oh, I don't know. He probably, but this is like one step removed than that because he's still him. And he picked up an Asian girl, but it's definitely not her.
You're afraid to tell us that you gave her a ride someplace. We can work with you there. But I know that you picked her up.
It's not a crime to be a counterfeit
you
Uber. Maybe.
I saw you in your shirt, arms fully extended.
Notice how those are completely irrelevant pieces of information that aren't specific to anybody.
Yep.
I saw you in your shirt, arms fully extended. If you were driving, that's more than likely how you
Everybody
do.
would be
And
doing
in
that.
your shirt. What kind? But you're hearing that and you go, oh my God, he knows I was in a shirt.
No, wearing a shirt. Timba,
wearing a
his
shirt
arms
that day.
wide.
Yeah. Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Where did you drop her off at? She was looking for a ride. She had missed her bus. She told you she was going to One North, so where did you drop her off at?
You can see he's starting to do the slight shake as a self-pacifying gesture. It's ramping up. Because he's not even saying, like, did this happen? Did that happen? He's saying, we know this happened. We know this. And even if it, like, they have no evidence to back it up, it works a lot of the time because, I mean, now it's super easy to get a hold of all that footage and, like, computers are getting faster all the time. So if you're going to get caught, now is going to be the time. So it's never been easier to buy a lie about technology. Like back in the 60s, they got footage of you. Like, where? I didn't see a film camera.
If they break into a series of dad jokes, it would be perfect.
Maybe I'm getting my days mixed up then.
Look at him.
Okay.
He is falling apart.
I thought I drove around on Saturday. I did pick a girl up. I don't remember where.
Okay.
I saw her picture. I don't think it was her though.
Do you remember the girl's name that you picked up?
No, she was talking very broken English.
So when Ted Bundy says he's probably, this is I and this mystery person who is somewhat ethereal. Like, I did pick up someone matching the description of Ying Ying on the day she went missing. And she had broken English, but it definitely wasn't her. A million Asians out there all the time. I just picked one up like they're a laborer on the street. Are you kidding me?
Okay. Tell us about what happened. What time of day was that?
Early afternoon, I don't really remember.
Okay.
I was just driving around. I saw a girl and she was very distressed.
Okay.
So I stopped my car and looked at her.
Okay.
Asked her if she
Not
could
awkward.
talk to her a little bit. Not much. I gave her a short ride, a couple blocks.
Okay.
She freaked out and got out.
Okay.
Like, that is the seed of the confession, essentially, because that's, like I was saying earlier, the best lies have a grain of truth in them. And the fact that he basically gives them the play-by-play of the first act of his 3-act murder structure, but just changes the, when those, the chyrons in front of Law and Order where they go, everybody's names have been changed and yada, yada, yada. This is just barely that. Like, if you were, there's an SVU where there's a toy maker, right, who plays essentially a Michael Jackson-esque character, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
And, we all know what he's talking about, but even that is an iron curtain compared to the veneer that Brendt is putting on this thing. I picked her up at the same time of day the other girl went missing. But she was totally different. I swear to you. It was a completely different Asian that was in the same part of town at the same time that happened to go missing at the exact same point in her life, too.
That's all it was.
Was
Brilliant.
this when you got on the north side of the railroad tracks on Goodwin? When you went across University and you drove on north? Did you let her out by the hospital or by the railroad tracks? Or where did you let her out at?
The woods.
I don't really remember specifics.
Was it close to where you picked her up?
Yeah, it was relatively close. It was in a residential
Oh, I remember that.
Okay.
So I'd never really been over there before. I have no reason to.
Okay.
I mean,
When you say she freaked out, what did she do? Did she start throwing things at you? Did she
She have any
scratch you? Looks like
pies?
you have a scratch on your right bicep there. Is that from?
I scratched myself in the sleep.
So 2 bullshit things are coming together at once. The defensive wounds being explained away as self-inflicted, because that happens a lot. And also the I don't remember ploy. I realize that people unfamiliar with true crime wouldn't be as tired of this old trope as I am, but Jesus Christ, during all these interrogations, you can recall everything from A to B. And then when, if you're going to start cracking, your next best option is not going to go I don't remember. What happened the minute before? Oh, I was having breakfast. And then as soon as I put my fork down, white, blank, staticky screen in my head for the next 4 hours. And then I remember coming to with a PlayStation 5 controller in my hand. I just, woo.
Okay. So she just freaked out. So she's sitting in the front passenger seat of your vehicle? Okay. Has anybody else sat in that front passenger seat since she got out of the car?
Probably. Not with me, but with my wife, probably. I mean,
So other than your wife,
I don't
who
know.
else sat in the front passenger seat with you that you know?
maybe a guy she's hanging out with.
Your wife?
Yeah.
Okay.
Guy she's hanging out with.
I don't know. I
This other person.
don't think it was her.
And if it's her, not again, I want to find this girl because I know she's alone and scared out there, and we don't have any contact with her. So you said you picked her up.
Yeah.
You went a couple blocks away into a residential area. You remember if you went north?
I went north for sure.
Okay.
See that? He slides right back in to be like, no, let's refocus on not how scared you are because you're a fucking murderer, but, let's start sympathizing with your victim here for a second and get you to remember the things, that weird gap of murder chunk in your memory.
Well, and he's he's so gentle, this
The
FBI
guy? Yeah.
Yeah, it's I
The
don't think
best ones are. You're never going to, even the bad cops, they're smooth as silk. This guy's a little rough around the edges, but I think they work perfectly together. The ones who get, in SVU, Elliot Stabler gets mad, starts punching a wall, and they open up right away because they need to write things quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen like that. You have to sweet talk people, and this guy is one of the best. Like Jim Smith is probably the best of all time.
I mean,
Not
I
this
know
guy.
I've got no professionals in the
Yeah,
city.
okay, so you went
So
north,
that was relatively close to Loomis, so.
all right, to where?
It was relatively close to Loomis. I'm somewhat
Loomis?
familiar with that area.
Okay.
Where you dropped her off or where you picked her up?
Where I picked her up. So I'm serious when I say I'm pretty antisocial. I pretty much just go to Loomis area, that parking lot there, and then go home.
Okay.
But I knew my general area,
Mhm.
and I don't remember exactly where I was.
Okay, where did you drop her off at?
There's a residential area, I guess a little north of Loomis.
The same street you picked her up from, right?
Yeah, north of that place.
That would be Goodwin Avenue that you were on.
Okay.
Just as an aside, put yourself in the place of the person who this story is supposed to be about. For whatever reason, you decide to open up your car to someone and give them a ride. Like you decide to indulge in hitchhiking, and a few blocks down the road, they start wigging out and jump out. You would every detail would be etched in your memory because you would want to tell everybody that story.
Yes.
Like you'd be like, oh my God, like I can't believe it. Like there was this nice blah, 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 this thing happened, and then bam, like right at the corner of such and such and this, they got out and ran screaming into the hills. You wouldn't be like, I drove somewhere, I was doing this with the wheel of the car, my vision went blurry, and she jumped into a space like ether. So just say nothing, idiot.
And you're facing north when she gets in the
showed
car.
me her phone, and I was like, broken English, she said, I'm going here.
So she was showing your phone like a maps program?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I saw it was north, so I started driving north, and she said something like, turn left after a couple blocks. Maybe she said something else, because that's really when she started freaking out. And she wanted to get out of the car, get out, try pulling the door.
I'll tell you exactly where this story starts to become a lie. It's getting close.
It's locked because the car auto locks. I unlocked, she got out.
Bam, there it is. So everything that you heard right there was the truth. He picked her up, started going back to his place. She was wigging out. Guarantee he had those locks nice and tight. And God knows what happened after that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. A grain of truth. But the fact that it ends so abruptly in such a stupid and nonsensical manner, what are we doing here?
Does it?
Where were the streets at, do you remember?
No, I don't remember.
Do you remember what she was wearing?
No, I don't.
Okay, another thing that is a nail in the coffin here is like when memories are created, when you need to know what is going on because it's tied to like an instinctual thing. So if something happens that is scary or makes you angry or does, puts you in an excited state, that's when a memory is formed. Someone wigging out in your car would be one of those times.
Yeah.
She got a backpack. Jeans.
Did she have anything on her head? Was she wearing sunglasses?
You'd be looking into her face.
Shoes on or flip flops?
I didn't notice flip-flops or high heels or anything, so it was probably normal shoes.
What was her ethnicity? You said she had trouble speaking English. What
Big
was she?
reveal. Here it comes.
She was
She
Asian.
was Asian.
Okay.
Boom. Oh,
What do you think? How old do you think she was? Do you think she was a
College
grad student,
age.
undergrad?
is Ying Ying's age?
Was she
So
somebody?
my guess was about 20.
Okay.
My guess was about 20. Her hair length-ish.
if he were a real person and this were a comedy sketch or vice versa, like they would have obviously that like that's describing her to a T. It's like they would have her like a glossy 8x10 of her, and they'd spin it around. And they go like this, and he'd go and fall backwards. But like it's such a bizarre situation because he's so deadpan, he's closed off, he is planted firmly, and he's constantly rubbing on his face. Like anyone, I realize that most people are not self-aware about almost anything.
Yeah.
And it, especially under times of stress. So I'm sure if he were to watch this video after the fact and see like what a balled up knot of stress and weird fidgets he was, he would have no memory of any of those actions because he is just on autopilot trying to fight for his life against something that these guys are basically like, yeah, we know, we already said we know, so please tell us. And then they have to back off to be like, what way were you driving? Which is a weird dance to me. In interrogations, you'll see that. You'll see these big confrontations where they go, we know you murdered XYZ. We know you did this. We know you did that. And they go, oh, and they're weak denial. And they shut that shit down. And then they back off and they talk about the car or a road or what they did for their birthday or how many members of their family they have. And it's so bizarre that they can just bounce back and forth like that. Because the suspect is relieved to talk about anything other than the crime they committed.
Mm-hmm.
And so they lessen the pressure. But like any rational person, like if someone was like, you murdered someone, and you go, no, I didn't. And they were like, well, what'd you have for breakfast? You'd be like, what? You would have the biggest like sense of whiplash on the planet if you had no idea what they were talking about. But if you knew what they were talking about, it would be zero surprise. And you'd sit there like this and then go, make a butterfly with your hands and fucking.
I have trouble telling Asian people apart from one another. Sorry.
Well, you would remember this
Sorry.
is specific though, because when you pulled up to her, you rolled your window down, and she leaned into your car, so you were looking right at her face. And
Right.
What did she have on her face?
A smile?
What did she have on her head? You were looking right at her.
That's,
don't
that's the
remember?
thing. Like,
No, I mean, even so, I taught many semesters here, and a lot of the students were Asian.
her ethnicity would not make her glasses or any hats she had possibly been wearing invisible. The shape of someone's eyes and face would not make from the neck up just like a blank void. Right?
Yes.
What kind of, like, again, the I don't remember is a great way to get out of being charged with perjury or lying because they can't prove that you don't remember it, but it makes you look so fucking guilty. Especially when it's gaps that literally anyone in any situation would take even the mildest notice of. You have zero.
Yeah.
Was she wearing
Yeah.
glasses? Did she have a ball cap on?
She might have been wearing glasses. I don't remember that.
She definitely was.
So
What did she tell you whenever you rolled down the window and you were chatting with her? You said she looked distressed.
that's when I stopped.
Do you remember specifically what
Again, I thought it was
she said to you?
I asked her if something was wrong.
And
What she say to that?
She said, I'm late, I need to get somewhere, or something like this. I was not exactly out of it, but just kind of like, oh, I'm going to help this random person, so I'm kind of going to look at in the first place.
doesn't he just seem like the kind of guy who would stop what he was doing and reach out to another person just to be a friendly guy after repeatedly proclaiming to be completely antisocial?
Yeah. Oh, I'm just gonna stop playing video games and just go out and see if I can be a good Samaritan.
I don't
today.
go anywhere. I don't talk to anyone. I've got no friends. But you know what? I was like, hey, today's the day.
Yeah.
So she said she was running late for something?
Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, well, you're right, because again, I was just driving around. So,
Did she say where she was trying to get to? You mentioned you were showing the phone with the mask.
she said she had a meeting with her professor.
I have got to get some form of counter that'll show up on screen, because every one of these interviews, there's a tick or something that happens over and over and over again. And I would like to have a running tally of how many times Brent shrugs. Like, he does it sometimes multiple times for one answer. It's like boing, boing, up to three times. So, I mean, we must be in the near triple digits at this point.
Yeah, I don't remember us talking for that long. I mean, really wasn't much said. She, like, when I told her my name, she didn't really hear it, so I had to say it again.
Why would you need...
A few times.
What?
Her English was really bad. Maybe I wasn't speaking properly either. Yeah, I mean, we really didn't talk about much. There really wasn't much said.
I'm sorry, but I understand if you're a foreign exchange student and your English isn't great, but you're also going to a university in America, so obviously your English is good enough to take courses in college there and talk to realtors and do all this stuff. So it couldn't have been that
Well,
terrible.
that's why this whole thing, up until, like, the only true part of his story is from when he sees her and picks her up to when she panics that the doors are locked. There's where all the truth is. Everything else is just complete bullshit.
She looked freaked out, so I heard her right.
So how long do you think that she was in your car for?
Less than 5 minutes. Not long
Less
at
than
all.
5 minutes.
Not long at all. There's just a few blocks, and I apparently took a wrong turn compared to what she said, and that was enough to spook her. I don't know.
So when you crossed the railroad tracks, did you turn to the left or to the right?
I don't remember where.
Oh.
So those are a little further up, I think, aren't they? I don't know. Again, I don't know the area that well. Those are before the hospital, pretty close. I don't know if I was that far up. So, I mean, I have no reason to go up that way because it's.
So if you would have turned left there after university, you would have driven right by the hospital. You would have been south of the tracks, and the very next thing you see, you're behind the hotel, right? You see the hospital.
The ring around the rosy they play with the car and all the directions and stuff, like, it gets tedious. I get why they're doing it, but oh my god, like, I'm sure that after the fact it made a nice little timeline of him driving around and murdering, but like having to sit through it IRL as they go, okay, and you turned left and then you made a right and and you know the jury had to see this during the trial.
Oy.
When she said turn left.
I would like to say,
I'm working on it.
yeah.
I know the area very well.
I don't think I drove past the hospital. So
Word of the wise, all interrogators need to have a map. Like, I'm sure it 9 times out of 10 wouldn't ever pay off, but there are some times when they go, oh, I need a map, and then it's like this mad dash and scramble to blah, blah, blah. Just have like a Rand McNally like atlas in there of the state that you're in when you're talking to the person, because like that would be, not only would it be like super convenient for you as an investigator, but like what a baller move to be like, oh, I need a map, and you go whoosh, like what are we looking at here? Hand him a Sharpie.
I don't remember train tracks, but I mean it's easy to forget.
Really,
How?
Everything's easy to forget for Brent.
So you said you kicked her out of the car in a residential neighborhood.
She got out of the car. I
Oh,
did.
she got out of the car?
She wanted to get out. Like,
Oh, definitely,
that's
she
why I
wanted
left.
out.
She was freaking out.
Yeah.
And she was saying things that
Because-
you didn't understand.
Because you,
Uh,
she thought you took a wrong turn.
Yeah, and something was up. I don't know, something like that. So
She had very broken English.
yeah.
Very broken.
When she tried to open the door, but again it was locked because my car auto locks. Obviously wanted to get out. I'm not going to keep someone I barely know in my car who just want to be in there. The girl.
Well.
So they're up. That was the last I saw her.
Kayla says, interrogator, I have a map. Let's look at it together. I cut it off the back of my box of Captain Crunch. Now, where were you when the crunch berries went missing?
Yeah, show me where the soggies hid the crunch berries. You dastardly.
Can I move this around a little? Thank you.
Can I touch your phone, please? Oh, well, you got Angry
Yes, let's
Birds?
start where you think you picked her up at.
And now we get your touch DNA, and they run his phone out to the lab.
Hit.
Well, Loomis Lab is
So Goodwin is there. Green, Springfield. So Loomis is right here. I remember.
The amount of patience that investigators have to possess to deal with this type of bullshit, because the best techniques go as follows. You ask them an open-ended question, you let them fill in as much as they can with as many lies as you can get out of them, so that the last, the 11th hour, you go, well, actually, and you turn it on them and you go, well, this isn't true, this isn't true, this blah, blah, blah. But having to get there through umpteen zillion suspects, go through directions or what they ate that day or how many times they would brush each tooth in the morning, like, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I can't imagine,
But,
like...
they are wrapped. You can see them. They are wrapped in what is going on here. And they know it's 100% bullshit.
Yeah.
They can track him. There's no reason that they should be as involved in this as they are. But, it's all for the show, because he'll go, oh, I did this, 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 and this. And then when they pull his phone records and they see that it pinged everywhere, all like from abduction to murder site, they go, oh, there you go. Gotcha.
We're driving around here. It was north of Springfield, so
It's a hell of a town.
I guess I was kind of in this area, maybe. Yeah, like over here. I remember being by the quad.
Do you remember driving by Wright Street? Or
Another reason Brent is not very bright, even though he said thank you and the guy's like, you're smart. Earlier, you may recall, the detective said, we got a fuck ton of video of you and we know exactly where you went. Why then would you be entertaining this? Right? If he's like, okay, where'd you go? And we're looking at a phone now. Like, if you're not guilty of something shady, wouldn't you be like, but I thought you had video? Like, I would be indignant if they were like, if someone was like, hey, I have video of you doing XYZ, which I would know to be a lie if that were the case. And then later be like, okay, so here's where I went. And you're like looking at the dude's phone. Like, wait, I thought you had video.
Yeah, I would be like, I'd like to see that video that you think that I'm on.
They can't. They can't feed you information. They can't show you evidence, because what you say has to line up with what they know. And they can't muddy the waters and be like, okay, so did you do... And that's why there'll always be these open-ended questions where, like, was it an accident? Like, what happened? They don't say, why did you blah.
Oh, I thought they've shown evidence to suspects or whatever before.
Sometimes they will. Like, if they have something irrefutable, they'll pull the card. But by and large, they're not going to fill in the suspect's story, because then they can be like, oh, because some people are just good liars and they can make up shit to cover for whatever thing that may seem plausible enough for them to skate for a little while.
the little Circle K is, and the big Beckman Institute as a landmark on a university.
I don't think I drove past Beckman. That doesn't ring a bell. I've been to Beckman a couple times. I don't know what it looks like from the other side, but I have had to go there a few times.
Like, the way he describes this day is like, after he picked her up, he just drove into the fog of Brigadoon and then later emerged. Like, he has no memory of going anywhere after that or anything.
Yeah.
Commandant Goodwin.
I just ended up home, asleep.
You see her standing there underneath that shade tree.
Maybe this is where Nancy Brophy learned it.
Yeah.
You take that quick left, and you run a box around her. Now you come back up north Goodwin and you pull up right next to her. You talk to her for less than a minute, and she gets in your car.
She was on my passenger side, so I would go this way. Again, I was driving around a decent amount beforehand.
So we can see that that's probably the truth. Like, if he is like pointing at his phone and saying, you do this, 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 and this, then yeah, they definitely have footage of that they've been able to find thus far, which is another reason, like, all of this, like, well, I went this way, I went that way. And as soon as the detective goes, well, actually you did this, he goes, whoa.
I don't remember exactly where I beforehand.
Yeah, you were definitely driving all over campus, and you were by yourself, and you weren't playing video games all day. So why would you tell us that? Why would you tell the FBI that comes to your house?
Dad question.
That you were
Rhetorical.
I don't. Maybe I mixed up the days. I mean, I thought I was doing it Saturday.
So what did you think that those two agents were at your house talking to you about? when they
My
came
car.
over?
Friday. That's why. I mean,
He's lethal
Friday is
with
a
these
day,
questions.
Or Friday, or they're there to ask you if you picked up an Asian female and gave her a ride.
About Friday. I mean, they were asking me about Friday between 2 and 3. So I told them. I mean, maybe I got my days mixed up. You know, I said a little bit ago. I thought I was doing this Saturday.
But you didn't bother to tell them, oh, I didn't. I played video games all day Friday, detective, but I actually did pick up a female on Saturday. You didn't feel the need to give them that information? And it might be important?
I mean,
All right, so you go.
Well, no, I didn't want to make up this story back then because I didn't have it. I'm making it up now.
Well, I'd be
Okay.
like, well, they didn't ask me about Saturday.
What?
And I mean, I would be freaking out if 2 cops came and were like questioning. I mean, not that I would do anything, but like,
No, you'd only be freaking out if you were guilty. So, like, of course, if they're gonna be like, oh, yeah, well, like, again, it's the weakest lie in the fucking world. Be like, oh, I thought it was Saturday, and then when they can definitively prove it wasn't Saturday, you've just admitting to doing everything that they're accusing you of. But your only defense was, I thought it was the day after. I thought I killed her the other day.
Go northbound through University. Where do you go next? Do you remember?
I turned left, so it looks like I did go past University. This must be the residential area I was talking about then.
It must be.
So I must have went past University. Yeah, for sure. So I drove a little more than that. So I must have turned left somewhere up here into this area. And that's where I would have dropped her off. For sure.
if I didn't
If I
kill her.
hadn't abducted her, yeah.
So just for, you were showing the area of Hill Street and what was that, Beaslin?
I don't know exactly where in here I was, but I mean, just looking at this, yeah, I mean, if this is Goodwin, Springfield's right here, I was in this area here.
He
I'm
just
assuming
seems
this is a
so
residential area.
chill to have murdered somebody.
Do you
Which I
remember
guess a lot of
seeing
people are.
A grade school off to your right?
Well, that's what. I don't know why this psychology filters into so many people who later are convicted of murder. But when they're put in the chair, you know, Sarah Boone does this, Amy Day does this. There are so many, you know, pick whatever interrogation is your favorite. Their strategy is like to be ultra accommodating and be a complete neutral party to it all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, if I act completely disinterested in this whatever crime that I'm being accused of or am associated with, then you know they'll see how harmless I am. But that's not how it works. Like when you get accused of something you didn't do, you take offense to it by and large as a human being.
Right.
So if someone accuses you of something repeatedly, something heinous, and you go, no, then yeah, what?
Nuh-uh.
Where are we?
Did you get that far north where you would have saw Martin Luther King Junior High?
And then you wouldn't take a whole bunch of bullshit follow-up questions that bring it back down to the level of normal conversation again.
Yes.
Or elementary school right there?
I don't know.
Were you not looking out your windshield
Where'd
at
you
all,
go
Brent?
after
Home.
straight home?
Yeah, that was enough for me that day.
Okay.
That was enough in driving.
One
Where did you see her
abduction.
walking
It was
out?
enough.
She's really just standing there looking at her phone. I mean, I left.
You didn't see her walk in any direction?
I don't think so. No.
One of the
Left
things he
it.
just didn't look at.
I'm gonna ask a personal question. Don't take it the wrong way. You mentioned your wife went on vacation with another friend. You mentioned that there's another guy she hangs out with. You mentioned there's another girl you hang out with. Do you guys have
We're in
a
an
fairly
open
open relationship? Okay.
Yeah, I have a girlfriend. She has a boyfriend as well.
Okay.
I'm curious about this because I don't know if he organically stumbled upon this because I don't remember him, or maybe he did say he had a girlfriend. So I don't know if he picked up on the subtleties of those two things, which weren't super subtle, or if, like they usually do, they just researched the fuck out of him and knew he was in an open relationship and are you know, leading him by the nose through this.
He had mentioned her at the beginning, but I think he just called her his friend.
Yeah, the other person, my friend.
Yeah.
In an unrelated way.
like that feels like everything else he has said, which is a lie. If you go, well, what's up with you have an open relationship, and you go, yeah, and we have other partners, but the thing we have together is strained, completely unrelated, allegedly. Yeah, obviously that's the thing, because like humans are territorial, and very few of us can be shared in a small group where everybody's totally okay with it.
Right.
That feels like what's going on here, especially with the whole like, no, it's not that.
I mean,
How long's that been going on, that strain?
a few months.
As long as we've been married. Which is odd too, because later his wife made a statement on his behalf, like, we've been best friends forever, I've never known anyone closer, and this is a complete shock. So I feel like something might be up with that, because if it was strained, that feels a little too try-hardy for me, but there's nothing indicative of it, so it's just a weird thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't tell her that I did this because I was scared that,
I didn't tell her I killed somebody.
great, now this is happening. I didn't tell her.
Which is like, what? This is happening? I picked someone up, she freaked out and ran away. You didn't want to tell her that?
How'd that make you feel when she went away for the weekend, this long weekend with that guy?
Lonely.
Yeah.
Lonely Brent.
And it's okay, those are normal human feelings.
Yeah.
Did you feel hurt?
Well, yeah, but I mean, she's been since for a while.
But still, she's your wife, and it's tough, even if you're in an open relationship like that, where it's tough to see somebody you care about, that you love, to go someplace else with somebody else and not include you.
Yeah.
And I get that, man.
Real quick commentary on society. Like, our culture is such that it's basically monogamous. I don't have any information to say that that's true genetically, like, because they could say, well, penguins are also monogamous and yada, yada, yada. But if you want to let your freak flag fly, if you're going to buck society's trends in any way, it's going to be incredibly difficult, because when we all consider something normal and you want to deviate, we go, ew, when there is no right or wrong. But the fact that you want to go so hard against something, unless you're really confident in it and or are able to disconnect from all that stuff, you're going to end up like Brent here.
Yeah.
Is that why you were driving around campus all day?
It's going to
pretty much
fester,
all
and
day
you're going to
long
be
on
thinking
Friday?
about them
You missed her?
in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to clear my head. Yeah, more or less.
That's understandable.
Yeah, stir crazy. I was lonely. And I thought it was Saturday. So,
Did you talk to any other girls
Again.
that day?
no.
Did you talk to any other girls on Saturday? Or did you stay home Saturday?
No. Once again, days mixed up.
Quit,
Yeah,
like,
So did you kill somebody else?
I thought it, now that we know that you thought wrong, the fact that he's bringing it up is so frustrating to me. Be like, oh, I thought it was Saturday. Well, obviously it wasn't. The footage that we now have implied is real shows you that that is not true. You have admitted to everything that's happened. And the fact that he keeps going like, well, I thought, and then this, once the lie is found out, you can't point back to it and be like, but remember the lie?
Remember that thing I said?
Remember when I lied to you guys? That was still in play. So, the whole lie thing that wasn't actually true.
Trying to
When
trip
I
me up
was-
on the days.
When I was driving, I'll put it in a clear way then. When I was driving around, she was the only person I talked to.
Okay, fair enough. Do you remember what time you started driving around campus that day? Was it early in the morning? Was it mid-afternoon?
Right.
About 2.
And again, this would all be backed up by the footage because it'd all be timestamped.
Yeah.
What they want him to do is make up some more bullshit. Because, depending on the municipality, they can go pretty lean and just hit you with the big ones. Or, like, I've seen some where, like, let's say 4 people were killed and they were hit with 80 charges.
Woo.
Or something like that. So, depending on how nitpicky you want to be, but again, too much, there's no such thing of in this context.
Mm.
After I ate lunch, but it was an early lunch.
Where'd you eat lunch at? Did you eat in Savoy?
No, at home.
No.
Chicken tenders?
Were you down in Research Park at all before you saw that day?
On Research Park.
Down by the I Hotel.
These guys haven't done it, but a lot of times this is like, if I were going to make an interrogation bingo card, this would be a space. Is they say, we already know a lot of stuff. So when we ask you something, we know the answer. They haven't said that here, but it comes up a lot, and it is a great technique to make someone really come off balance. Because, yeah, you don't know what they have.
Yeah.
But I'd be willing to buy it because, again, he's able to back it up with, like, things that Brendt is not discounting as lies. And, you know, you go along with it, it's implicit.
I don't remember exactly where I drove. I wasn't just on campus, but...
Do you remember driving by the Assembly Hall? Or State Farm Center?
No, I don't remember that. I don't actually know what those are.
Oh, that's where they play basketball. The big basketball arena. Looks like a giant mushroom on the south quad.
You're past the cemetery around there?
Yep.
So, again, like, I really don't know campus.
There's a huge basketball arena. No, I didn't take notice, but the cemetery, which would otherwise probably be unremarkable next to a giant stadium, remember that.
Well, and you mentioned driving by the quad, which is part of the university, because that's where people sleep.
That's what I'm saying. It's the stupidest tactic in the world, the I don't remember tactic, because you won't be able to delineate the things that you definitely wouldn't remember if there was a memory gap. So you can say, yeah, I remember this, but 30 seconds later, it's a blank. I remember this aspect, but not this aspect. And it's always just like this farce that they have to keep going around and around in circles of. So, I remember this, and then, 3 seconds tick by on the clock, and I was transported to a different dimension.
I started to go in here for 3.5 years now, but I still
The big cemetery by the football field?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, and so that's Kirby Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
I was on Kirby.
And you're heading east towards Urbana, and Kirby, you would have had the baseball fields off to your right, the cemetery off to your left. So you would have had softball field, baseball field off to your right. Then right when you got to Lincoln Avenue, there's soccer fields off to your right.
I don't remember
Lacrosse
specifics on directions, but I was down by the cemetery. I do remember.
Simply by necessity, you would need to learn and remember the streets around where you live. Like, we moved into this new studio, less than 2 years ago. And within 6 months, I knew what was like, because you have to. Like, if you wake up every day being like, well, I don't really know the area, how is that a way to live? It's impossible.
Yeah.
Like, you would have to go to class, meet people, places, possibly go to doctor's appointments, go and get food. Like, by accident, you would learn the area. So again, the I don't remember or I'm not super familiar is like such a bullshit. Like, you might as well do that thing where everybody who says, if you plead the fifth, it feels like you're guilty, because that's what it is. The fifth is so you don't have to incriminate yourself. Yeah. So yeah, I get why people feel that way. But this is a one step above that in like suspicion.
Yes.
There you go. I'll plead the fifth, which means I'm not talking and they can't infer from it. But if you go this, and I don't remember, a jury can be like, oh, I can take that into consideration.
Yep. That's a key landmark.
Yeah.
But you don't remember where you went after you drove past the cemetery?
It was completely random where I was driving. I didn't have any kind of...
Do you remember driving off campus into Urbana? Into a residential neighborhood in Urbana?
In Urbana? If I did, it wasn't that far.
I think they're still
Were you in
talking
Orchard
pre-abduction.
Oh.
Where all of our married student housing is?
Because otherwise he would just say, I went home. That's what was confusing to me, because he's like, oh, well, you know where he went next? Because he said he went straight home. So unless this is post-abduction and he's making all this up, but it feels pre.
I think because they were talking about how long he had been driving before he picked her up.
Yeah, which is, again, a weird thing to waste a lot of time on, but if they're going to ping his phone, they can say, well, here we go, perjury.
Asian community that lives out there? Are you driving around Orchard Downs?
I did go to Orchard Downs for a little bit, but there was construction, so I turned back. I know I went to Orchard Downs because a friend of mine has an apartment there.
Who's your friend?
Her name is Rita. She was a co-worker, research partner of mine.
Okay.
When I went here. Didn't see her, obviously, nothing like that. I was like...
So you came down all the way through...
I turned into there, but again, there was construction, so I just left immediately because I was like, oh, this is boring.
Turn around and you could
This is
go.
boring.
I mean, I drive like this occasionally. It's just...
So this is a seed planted because, spoiler alert, they have done quite a bit of research on Brent here, and they found that he is super into Asian girl porn and stuff.
Nice.
So the fact that they are pointing out, like, did you drive into an Asian neighborhood is setting, laying the tracks essentially of like, you were looking for a victim. You went to the Asian community in our college and then just happened upon one at a bus stop. But they can't just say that.
Right.
Clear my head. I like exploring, I guess you could say.
I don't remember anything, but I
those
explore
things,
all the
like, I
time.
drive down Springfield every single day at
Just
work.
around the college.
There are 2 streets right next to it.
Like if Lewis and Clark, as they were going across the continent, didn't just write anything down. I love to explore, but you're just taking a nature walk for 3,000 miles and write a thing down and make a single map. I love to explore. Exploring involves like at least paying attention.
Literally never seen them. Just like, I wonder what those are.
So you take those instead.
And so I do it occasionally. And Saturday was the day where I did a lot of videos.
Okay.
Or Friday, whatever.
Yeah, no, again, not trying to fault you or
Yeah.
trip you up over the days. I know sometimes days can be a blur.
Yeah, with a lifestyle like Brent's,
So you
naps
were
and video
cruising around
games, how do you
campus
keep it all
Well,
straight?
they all blend together, like retired people.
Your wife was up in Wisconsin with your boyfriend.
But then that would even lead more credence to the fact that you would remember an outlying event. If every waking moment and sleeping moment is the same, something weird happening would get your attention.
Yeah.
It's
But I
But-
could also see, well, I'm not trying to be like he didn't do it because he obviously did. But like, if you do the same thing every day and you happen to do this, drive around, you could not know what the day is legitimately.
right, but whatever. That again is a lie. Like,
Yes.
If you're getting juiced up enough that you do the things that he did, you're gonna savor every gory detail because that's the kind of weirdo you are.
Mhm.
But again, don't do the whole like, oh, memory fog.
While you're cruising around, you saw Miss Ying Ying. She appeared very distressed. Is that correct?
If it was her, yeah. I mean,
You hear that soft admission? He's like, you see Ying Ying, and he goes, if it was her. And who else would it be, Brent? Like, what the fuck?
again, I don't...
Again, I thought this was Saturday, and it was a completely different Asian person.
That came on Monday or Tuesday, whenever it was, that it was her.
Okay.
Like, because I knew she was missing.
Obviously.
I picked up an Asian girl. I thought she was about 20.
Like,
And from there, you went north on University. She was trying to point out directions in her phone.
Yeah.
You turned left into the neighborhood. She started panicking.
I got up.
I got it. Remember, she got
Yeah,
out.
she got out.
One thing happened, definitely. She got out.
That's all that happened. And then I went home.
When she said she was distressed, or you said that she looked distressed, what did she say to you when you rolled your window down and talked to her?
She said she was late for something.
Other than that, did she tell you what it was?
She
Or
said
where it
she
was
had
at?
a meeting with her professor.
Did she tell you where it was at?
Yeah, but I didn't understand her. So,
So did she offer to pull up the address in her phone and show it to you?
I think she did that in my car. I don't remember her getting her phone outside of the car.
And what did her phone look like? Was it black? Was it red?
It was definitely one of those two.
Do you remember what kind it was? Like Android or iOS?
That's a detail that I would not know.
Wasn't my type of phone, I can tell
I
you
wouldn't
that
have
much.
noticed if somebody else, what kind of phone somebody else had.
Yeah.
But in context, if they're sitting next to you mere inches away and they have it open and they're looking at a maps program, which she definitely was because she needed to tell this numbnuts where to go because she thought he was an actual Good Samaritan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you'd know that.
Hmm.
Like it.
Maybe. I don't know. I wouldn't know the difference between like our phone and like a Windows phone or an
Windows
iPhone.
Phone don't exist, but yeah, you totally would. An Android and an iPhone, they look completely different. So, and that's the thing too. Like you can, maybe at some point they'll have to start describing the aesthetics of phone OSs at some point. But yeah, like everybody knows Android from iPhone. If you're, walking around on the planet Earth today, I don't know why you're not clued in about that.
Have Samsung Moto, so an Android.
You remember the color of the case? Because she showed you the map where she wanted you to take her.
The front of it must have been white.
Okay, fair enough.
Hand like this, I can see the back.
Do you remember did you recognize the map program?
It must have been Google Maps.
It must have been.
What else is there?
And
Well, iPhone would have a different thing potentially, or they're like you could use Waze, but like Google Maps is so iconic. Even back in 2017, like this isn't 2006. This is 2017. Everybody's got a smartphone. You know exactly what Google Maps looks like.
Yeah.
It's been standard on smartphones now for probably 400 years.
I know that there's a couple out there.
It looked like the one you showed me. So
Okay.
it didn't look anything weird.
Have you ever used Google Maps on your phone, Brent? Fucking numbnuts.
Again, my my theory is that she can get out of the car. I'm just being open with you. My theory is
Being honest.
Yeah, it's soft confrontation.
she was in there a little bit longer.
Okay.
What do you?
Good one, Brent.
I'd like you to be more forthcoming with me because again,
Not no way in hell, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
got her family flying over here from China. It's been 6 days. It's raining outside. I need to find her.
We have 600 Chinese students that have volunteered to look for her. What I can tell you is that we will find her. Now, when we find her is up to you. Because you know, and we know, that she didn't just get out of your car. So we need to know where she is now, so that we can move forward from this. But if you maintain that she just got out of the car and walked away, it's very difficult for us to move forward.
We're
Whoa.
looking for just kind of like a quick tryst with her, or see if trying to pick her up.
Okay, so this is another technique from the read, or rather, part of the read technique, the alternative question, right? So instead of like just asking if it was an accident, they're not going to imply that anything untoward, like the murder, happened. But if they can put her in there for longer, that's one more step forward, as ridiculous as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can go, hey, did you want to get with her and that's what happened? Like a little consensual. I love that. They say a little consensual sex, like you both agreed, shook hands, and signed the contract.
That would have been nice, but
Crazy thing to say too. You hoping for a tryst? Oh, it would have been nice. Yeah, I would love to meet I would love for this stranger to have wanted to bang me. It turns out she just freaked out after a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
It would have been nice.
Do you have, I'm going to ask you a weird question, and
Did you kill
a
her?
lot of us have fetishes.
It's crazy.
How would you describe your relationship with your wife? Are you guys into certain things? Do you like porn? Do you like...
we're pretty vanilla together.
Which is, maybe these things are not correlative, nor are they causative. But I feel like if you're going to be that couple who has an open relationship, aren't you going to have a little something more?
Yeah.
Like if you're
probably.
open enough to be like, yeah, let's swap out, tag team this bitch. And then for him to be like, yeah, with me and my wife, it's pretty vanilla. Like Am I the only one that seems incongruous to? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have some stuff in our apartment.
I mean, do you have like certain types of people that
Some
you
stuff.
have fantasies about that you might want to hook up with? You know,
Not
Asians.
particularly, no.
Well, I missed it about for
okay. I mean, have you ever like, you do realize like everything you tell us, we fact check regardless of what you tell us. So,
I know.
like stuff like
I don't know.
YouTube videos that you've seen
Okay.
regarding Asian women.
Starting light.
Mm.
Do you like videos of Asian women? Like Korean women?
Like K-pop songs and stuff.
If you're wondering why he's being so specific, obviously he's done his research. And then Bray comes in here with the K-pop shit, like, oh, you mean like, yeah, obviously they've been digging around in your history and shit, and you go, a small admission, like K-pop?
I rock out to some
Maybe.
K-pop.
I like so I like all types of women.
Okay.
And that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have an Asian fetish.
But something drew your eye to her. Because you were cruising all over. And if she was truly distressed, I mean, there was an e-phone stand right behind her. She could have pushed that button and got help. And she didn't ask you for help, per se. She asked, she needed to get to, she was late for something.
Yeah.
And that's, so you offered
Yeah.
to give her a ride.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been doing this, I'm 45 years old. I've been policing basically since I was 21 years old, young Marine, living out in Quantico, Virginia. I've had a gun on my belt for basically most of my adult life.
This is another classic staple of Interrogation. It's like comfort food. You watch it for the greatest hits. And there's no interrogation I've seen yet where one or both of the detectives like bring up how long they've been doing this
Yeah.
shit. Whether it's like, do you think I was on the job yesterday, like in a confrontational way, or like this, where you go, you know, like, I've been doing this so long, let's be real with each other.
Yeah. I've
It
heard all the
always-
shit.
Yeah, and no one ever admits to any less than like 10 years either.
Mm-hmm.
It could be your third
all
year. I'm
veterans.
sure they all go, like, there must be like, hey, now that you're a detective, if you're going to tell someone how long you've been doing it, add like a 0 or whatever.
Okay. And I get that sometimes people lie to me. I don't get upset over that. I don't take it personal. You know, a lot of times people,
Okay. Good one, Brent.
they tell me truths, and then, or they basically, a little bit of truth here, a little bit of truth there, but just to try to stay the course, to make me believe that they're telling me they're being entirely truthful. But you and I know that here and now, what we're talking about, you're not being entirely truthful with us. And at this point, we're trying to help you. We're trying to help her. We're trying to help her family. I don't think that you're a bad person. Something happened though, and something got out of control.
You're not a monster. You made a
And we
mistake.
need to know where she's at. Because the longer she's missing, we're going to find the answers to all these questions, whether we do it now or we have to do it 2 weeks from now. But we're gonna put this behind us, and everybody's gonna move forward. And this is a time for you to be entirely honest with us. Her family is coming to China to look for their daughter.
You can see him move through these techniques effortlessly. At first, he has the technique of like, you know, it's a lost cause. The evidence is piling up and it will surely crush you once it topples. So why not jump in front of it now? Great technique. It works on a lot of people. But then he hits it with the double blow of the connection with the family and try to work on those whatever morals or ethics that Brent may or may not have, which I think that technique is overused a lot in these too, where like, they'll do that thing where like, I look at you and I don't see a monster. You're not a monster, are you? And a lot of the times these dudes are monsters, and they won't even agree to the fact, like heartily, when they say, "You're not a monster, are you?" They won't ever go like, "No, I am not a monster." Sometimes they do, but oftentimes they go, "No." Like they won't even jump wholeheartedly onto them being on their side even a little bit,
Yeah.
because they're monsters.
Do you have any sisters?
Yeah.
What wouldn't if your sister was missing, even if it was because of you, wouldn't you want to help for the closure for that family, for your loved ones?
Yeah.
She never owned a car.
Listen to how pathetic and weak his denials are now.
What did he say?
She got out of the car.
Oh.
Like, and that's part of what's happening here is like the fatigue of this is wearing him down. The more they sidestep his denials or flat out reject his denials, that wears you down mentally. And you can see him now. He's barely speaking audibly to these dudes who are right across the table.
Mm-hmm.
No, I swear.
She owned my car.
She got my car.
You have to know you're a smart man. You have a PhD, right?
No, I have a master's.
Masters. Oh, you got out of the PhD. You're still a smart man, is my point.
Are you?
So you have to understand how technology works. How do you think I knew that she Googled the address to 1 North? How do you think I knew that?
Because they pulled her ass the second she was reported missing. They went
1
over
minute
her
after getting
digital
your car.
everything.
How do you think I knew that? We know that she didn't get out of your car. You need to be honest with us. Help us put this to rest. Help us bring her back to her family.
And put you in jail.
So here's another soft technique that he's using. We're doing this thing like, yeah, you just need to tell us. And I've seen it a million times where the suspect goes, "No, you're accusing me of blank, whatever the crime is. You're accusing me of this murder." The detectives all go, "No, I just want to know the truth." When, yeah, they are definitely accusing you of a murder, but they say, "No, I just want your side of the story," or "No, blah, blah, blah." They will even deny your obvious and truthful accusation toward them. And people, they buy it. Because you go, "No, I'm just saying," and they'll minimize it all the way to this. They go, "I'm not accusing you of the murder," which is obviously true. What I'm saying is you're not being completely truthful with us.
Yeah. And we need all of the help we can get from
Yeah,
you.
that's as minimized as you can get it. And which is true about everybody. No one will ever tell you 100% of the truth. So yeah, boom, it works out great.
You can do that. You can do that. You can do it right now.
Now's the time. Now is the exact time. Another of the greatest hits. Now's the time. Now is the time. The time is now. They'll always say that. Or they'll say, "This is your opportunity."
Mm-hmm.
Now's the time. And there's there's pressure. Now is the time. Do it, do it, do it. Go. Or now's your opportunity, which opens up. It's the exact opposite of that, where you go, "Now's your opportunity to step into the limelight."
Right. Because later, I don't know if it'll be.
Yeah, now's the time. Hurry, go, go, go. Stress. Now's your opportunity. Sort of lifts that, and you go, "Oh, yeah, okay. I can still spin this."
Mm-hmm.
They both work the same way, and it's beautiful.
I understand if you've had dark thoughts. I understand if you've been depressed. I understand if you've been drinking too much at times. I understand if you've had sadistic thoughts, wondered what it would be like to commit an act of violence.
Which he admitted to somebody, I think in 2015, like he had been having these dark ass, and maybe they even looked at his like online activity, but yeah, he was into that sort of shit. So it's not like this is all bouncing out of Brendt. Like, "No, I never heard of this before." He is definitely identifying with it.
I know that temptation is out there. I need to find her. I know she got in your car. You went with her. You've been depressed. Your wife just left to go on a vacation with another man. You see her. She gets in. She's vulnerable. Let me find her.
I think I've told you.
Okay, so did Did she get back in your car then?
No.
Did you get out of the car and follow her?
No.
Those are the only other options.
Why not? Was it because of the kind of neighborhood you were in?
I don't know anything about that neighborhood. So.
Did she run away from you? Did she stand there?
No, she stood there, looked at her phone, and I drove away. So I don't remember her going any direction.
Yeah, she was freaking out hardcore trying to get out. The doors were locked, so he had to pull over real quick to let her out. And as soon as she steps out and her feet hit the sidewalk, she's totally placated back on Instagram. Cool story, Brent. Cool story. Totally believable.
So that's what it is.
Are you sure that you let her out of the car in the neighborhood? Are you sure you didn't let her out more towards the heart of Champaign, maybe close to the railroad tracks? Are you sure you didn't drive her further west into Champaign?
Like into your house?
When you first took that left after Goodwin?
I don't remember how far it was. I thought it was shortly after. I don't
You
remember,
just
like, crazy
pointed on a
specifics like
map where it was, and now you're going to be like, yeah, actually, I don't know.
It was just a neighborhood, a residential area.
And that's why they keep asking the same questions, because the story that you just made up is not a memory. So in 5 minutes, when they ask you that question again, you'll go, oh, what?
I don't know.
You would remember this drive.
Yeah.
Not specifics like that. Like, how far are you talking? Like a mile or two? No, not that far. I don't think so.
Okay, so you're telling me that when we find her, we're going to find her phone, is what you're telling me. Is that what you're telling me? Because when she got out of her car, your car, she had her phone in her hand?
I have no idea. She had her phone. Yeah.
I have no
don't know
idea.
I don't know the answer to that question. So.
Well, I mean,
Well,
if he's
certain
playing
questions
with
we
the
can
story
ask.
of that he let her out, who in his head, who knows what could have happened to her or her phone because he wasn't there.
Yeah, sure, I guess. But I mean, it's just another nail in the coffin because they know, like, what it all comes. Like, you can do the research, and it all comes. It's a very interesting case because there was no body, obviously, and we'll get to the verdict after this. But wild shit because he wanted to be a serial killer. Like, he had ideations for doing that. This was just his first time, and since it never went past the I want to be. It's like, I want to be a baseball player, and you get out onto a major league, field, and you get beamed by a 98 mile an hour fastball, and you get smashed in the head because you were standing in the wrong place. Did zero prep because he just, I don't know, broken brain.
Yeah.
We know the answers to. We're seeing if you're being truthful with us. Okay.
There you go.
If I ask you a question I know the answer to, and you give me a different answer, I know you're not being truthful with me.
See, that was the technique pulled late. Like, that should have, or not should have, I can't tell them how to do their job, but usually that comes way earlier because they try and circumvent all the needless bullshit of staring at the phone and, like, looking at an imaginary route.
Mm-hmm.
And which was obviously, like, he didn't need to say that. It was obvious they had all that information, but it's still nice to hear.
This is part of the reason why we keep asking you, help us find her. I appreciate you being honest with her getting into the car. It tells me that you're telling the truth, because I knew the answer to that.
So was
I want to bring her back to her family.
Okay.
Okay.
What happened in that car? I know she was looking for directions. Things went sideways. Tell me what happened.
That's what happened.
Why don't you just believe my obvious lies?
Were you attracted to her at all?
Reasonable amount.
She's a good-looking girl.
A reasonable amount, despite the fact you don't remember what she looked like from the shoulders up.
Right. She had
Crossed your
jeans.
mind?
Yeah, the thought crossed my mind, but it doesn't really happen with anyone.
I mean, maybe she's into that. Is my point. And I'm not judging you if she got in your car and she wanted to go to another location. You
Here we
guys
go.
have some fun, roll around, have sex, consensual sex. Something happens. You panic. Is that a possibility?
So this is another of the alternative theory question where you go, yeah, of course, because if you're not familiar with how this works, the detectives or any investigator will give you that option and be like, well, if it was an accident, then that's different. Now, notice in that statement, there's no usable information. It's not different also, by the way. Whether you killed them on accident or whatever, they're going to charge you with murder. And they're going to shoot for first degree almost always. And that's the thing, too. They say, well, sometimes they'll even go into it and they'll say there's a big difference between first degree, second degree, and manslaughter. Like, because sometimes these people in the interrogation chair will be like, oh, it's so many years, how long, blah, blah, blah. And they'll tiptoe around that. And they go, there's a huge difference between this, that, and the other. But it's not like after this whole conversation, they go, you know what? Since you were such a good sport, instead of first degree, we're going for manslaughter, and you'll be out in 4 years. And that's what it always comes across as. And it works a lot of the time, too.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So you're telling me you never had sex with her?
I never had sex with her.
Lie.
Never penetrated her with your fingers? Any parts of her body? With
No.
your penis?
No.
With your fingers?
No,
Never had sex. Did you kiss her?
no.
No.
Okay. Are you afraid to tell me if you did? Because it seems like you're trying to think instead of just answer the question. You're trying to think about 3 steps forward.
Okay, so even though this is a great interrogation, there are 2 species, by and large, that you're going to get. When the interrogation takes place after the collection of physical evidence linking them, or before, where they only have circumstantial evidence, they're trying to build a trap for them to walk into. The fact that his performance here got him out of this without being arrested and it took the sting with the girlfriend later is incredible. So the fact that, obviously, they never found the body, and so if all they have is her cell phone data, which he probably destroyed the phone as soon as they were, because, he didn't want to be tracked. All this circumstantial evidence, even though it is incredibly damning, wasn't enough to keep him. So he's kind of like Stephen McDaniels in that scenario because they had the same plan. They get the body to the dump and then it's spread out over God knows how many acres and then compacted with how many tons of garbage. So yeah, it's a lost cause, and that's what happened. They never found her. But, her body got there, so it was extra hard. Stephen McDaniels, God knows what would have happened if the trash guys were able to get there before the cops did.
Oh, yeah.
He probably would have sailed right through that shit, or at least would have been a much more long and drawn out process.
Well, like where I'm going with it. And I think I've demonstrated enough, I've shared enough with you that you know that I know that you didn't drop her off in that neighborhood. You know that we
Just the fucking shrugs. Like the fact that, yeah, they both do know that for a fact. I'm sure, it has his guts like this, but he has to sit there and he can't even, because, like when you're being gone over by an authority figure, at some point you just sort of check out and your body just feels like this lump of clay. So I'm sure it's taking all of his might to even muster the pathetic little,
Right.
And like, you could not look any more guilty, but the fact that he's sitting there, and I'm sure he's thinking, like, I haven't cracked, like, I haven't.
Good for you, Brent.
But, like, again, self-awareness is an all-time minimum. And while I'm at it, the idea of intelligence being some sort of like universal thing is ridiculous. You can be book smart all you want, but can't run your own life or write a check or use your debit card or wipe your own ass in some cases. So the fact that guys like Brendt will go like, oh, I got a master's in physics, like that doesn't transfer. If you're really good at something, you cannot take unrelated skills somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm really smart. I'm good at book learning. Well, good news. For these guys, at least, you're bad at literally everything else.
Follow her phone. Okay.
Okay.
So where did you drop her off at?
Where'd you take her, Brent?
That's when you should come back and be like, well, where did you find her phone? Ping.
Where did you
That's
find
where I
her?
took her.
Tonight.
Boom. That was it. So, here's the thing. Let me get back to the main thing here. So, after all that, they had to let him go. The girlfriend, because I'm sure Brendt was acting super sketchy from then until this happened.
Mm-hmm.
They go walking around and she wears a wire because she thinks he's totally innocent, obviously. He admits it. He goes, yeah, I did it. I did this, that, and the other thing. She goes, don't tell me. And he even gets a little juiced up over the fact that they're walking around this thing that is supposed to memorialize his victim.
Yeah.
I cannot, it's kind of like akin to trophies or whatever. You're like living through a trophy because you're the person behind all of this and nobody knows it but you, and you get to rub one out to that sort of shit.
Well, yeah, it's like the people that go back to the crime scene, the killers that go back to see what they're doing, like with the caution tape around and they're like hanging out watching the police.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Everybody in these situations look past information you should obviously know, like the Grand Amato case. Like, he was pulled into the police station, like he knew what was going on, and if he just was like, hey, yeah, I saw all of the commotion, like yada yada yada, and get in front of that, maybe there'd be something.
Mm-hmm.
But if you sit in an interrogation and let these accusations fly and you put up zero resistance because you go, I don't know, these obvious, like, it was you. And so by hour 3, when they go, why'd you do it? And you go, I didn't. What? What? Okay, yeah, good job.
Kayla goes, where'd you take her, Brent? I took her to the Middle North.
To the Middle North. Yeah, he dumped her in the Middle North. But yeah, so when he was sentenced, he got 10 years on top of a life sentence with no possibility of parole. I think the 10 years was for the kidnapping, and the sentences have to go consecutive. So after he dies, he'll have to do another 10 years.
Oh.
Or after the 10 years, his life will start behind bars. But either way, he's gonzo forever. And what a piece of shit. He was insufferable through his trial. One of these guys who was totally checked out. God knows what his childhood was like coming up like that. But whatever it was, it resulted in this homunculus.
It's crazy. I know it happens and people don't get caught, with probably doing something similar like this. Just abducting somebody in the middle of the day.
Right, and that's the thing. There are some crimes that are going to get weeded out. Like, how many kidnapping cases do you hear anymore? Yada, yada, yada. Because there are some things that you just cannot get away with. And those who get away with the crimes do it because they put even a little forethought.
Yeah.
If you're going to buy a burner phone, let's say, the ones who get away with it probably wear a disguise, probably do it a long ass time before they're going to use it so that records die off or whatever. It's just that these people who have, the desire to kill, but not a brain cell to spark an idea out of, within the past 2 weeks, you go, okay, here's when you bought your murder stuff. Here's when you buy your burner phone. And they can track it because there are cameras everywhere. You walk around with no, Chandler Holderson. When he was buying the stuff to dismember his family, walking around in the era of COVID, no mask. Could have put on a hat and a mask and then have plausible deniability. These fucking, like, they're no one's thinking ahead.
Yeah. We caught you on camera at the Walmart buying a shovel and bleach.
Yeah, and even the ones who do, like, their ultimate undoing is through technology. And it, but it's so strange too, because again, if you look at the stats, the case closure rates across the board are woeful, but we still tell ourselves, like, oh, you can't do anything without being caught on yada yada. Well, then why don't the numbers reflect that? I mean, the number of cold cases are getting solved and people are getting exonerated through DNA, and that's nice. But the amount of crimes going on, and maybe that's why true crime is so compelling too, is like, if you're into true crime, the stats are terrible. So when someone does get caught, it's nice to see, whatever, something happen. Because the system exists for a reason, and it's for this. We got a little something going on, but most of the time it's like, and they fly away into the night. Mm-hmm. But that's just the way it is. So everybody, thank you for showing up and being a part of this. I hope you enjoyed it. I love this sort of stuff because the game of cat and mouse, like, this is a game where the rules are essentially made up on the fly.
Yeah.
And
there's guidelines, but not rules.
There's guidelines because, like, and that's another crazy thing is, like, the amount of stipulation in the legal system. Because I was watching the sentencing where, like, all that happened realistically was a child was kidnapped and then killed. And so you go, okay, kidnapping and killing. But they have modifiers that are extra charges. So they say, well, since the murder occurred while a kidnapping was happening, that's a different charge unrelated to the murder and the kidnap. So you can do a single act that carries you through this horrifying trail that just piles and piles and piles and piles depending on your jurisdiction.
That's crazy.
And so it's a weird... there's no consistency, but it's interesting to see all the technicalities because you got the spirit and you got the letter. And for some people, they go the extra mile to do the letter. Like for Brendt, like for pieces of shit where it's like, yeah, this person needs as many as possible. They find all the little modifiers. But if they want to go easy, they go, well, And then there's plea deals where you can walk scot-free. And it's the most intricate game going outside of life itself, which is wild. And it's all made up. Like, it's just book after book after book of people making these rules and modifying this, that, or the other to try and stop something that's never going away. Murder's been outlawed for a long time across many cultures. And somehow, the thicker the law book gets, doesn't seem to really make any of that go away.
Nope.
But we play this game because why not, right? I guess.
Maybe one day.
No. Nobody thinks that. There's always going to be, it's just like, it's jobs.
Yeah.
Buildings will fall down, so we'll always need construction workers. We'll always find things objectionable, and the idea of justice is appealing, even though what is that? So we'll always have people either with control complexes or actual, like, desire to clean up the streets or whatever their rationale may be. But it's a cleanup crew. How many crimes are prevented? They call it, law enforcement and crime prevention. It's impossible to tell when a crime has been prevented because it never happened. What we're doing is cleaning up after the fact.
Yes.
It's not like you see a wave of cops coming through and cleaning out possible crimes. They're coming in after the crimes are committed to figure it out so that the people who are at on the victim side can go, well, at least, the crime that happened was, violent and or whatever, and it happened in an instant. And the way to get justice is to slowly grind out every nugget and every fact and talk to every person and compile stuff. So, and that's compelling too, is the lopsidedness. Somebody, there's a shooting in the street and it'll be 4 or 5 years before they see justice, if at all. Like, let's say it's a perfect scenario where the crime happens. In under a year, they find the person. And then it's year after year of appeal as they wait in jail or they're out on bond. And so the thing that they did distant memory.
Yeah, like Nancy Brophy. She killed her husband, and then 2 years later, she was finally on trial.
Oh, I think it was more than that. But yeah, that's just it. It's like
you can live your life as a normal ass person under the suspicion that you did this, and eventually maybe possibly go to court and go to jail.
Right. Like the
And she could have died before she got to jail because she was old.
But that's just it too. Is like when the system lands on something and it is beyond a reasonable doubt, we go, well, whew, it's worth all the time and energy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that, there isn't some righteous justice out there that some people get a feel for. But realistically, once the person is dead, all the courts and all the justice in the world isn't going to bring them back. They're not going to feel better about it. But we all have to, as a society, we set our lips, and when all the microphones and cameras come out at the end of court, you go, justice was served and yada, yada, yada. If I'm ever the victim of like a tertiary crime, like if someone I know very well, like on a family level or whatever, is killed and I'm, the microphone is thrust into my face at the end, I would find it hard to be like, yeah, justice was served, and I'd like to thank all the hard work and yada, yada, yada. Because the work was hard, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
The legal system is nothing but a lot of work. But the idea that anything can be done to right what is wrong, to unring that bell, is semi-laughable. So all we can do as a society is like on the outside watch and inflict as much suffering without being cruel and unusual as we can. And we'll say, we'll take the cruel and unusual like punishments off the table. But like we just watched Brendt, that probably was not fun. And that's going to be the rest of his life, is just one uncomfortable situation after another in prison, always watching your back and always, so yeah, we say, oh, well, vindication. But 1 out of 100.
Yep.
Kind of sad. But again, that's why it feels so good and tastes so sweet. And that's why you are into true crime if you are like me. Because something this lopsided, with it's like a big stew, very few chunks of meat that you can grab with your spoon. But when you get one, you go, God damn, that was nice.
That was tasty.
Because you don't think about the spoon after spoon of water, which metaphorically is all the crimes that go unpunished and undiscovered even. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We will catch you on another episode whenever that happens. We got a big month coming up, so it's nice to have you for all those potentially. See you later.
Bye.
For this, try to.
Fistful of Podcasts Radio.